Time around holidays is so much fun, but if you're like me, I tend to get so busy with family, traditions, events, and activities that I often have little or no time to paint. So today I thought I'd teach you how to paint these pretty yet easy enough for beginner poppies that only take minutes to complete so you can still get that painting fix in even when you're crazy busy. When I'm strapped for time, I also like to use watercolor paper that is sort of already bound or basically pre-taped down for me. Easy to grab and get started painting. This way, I can cut that whole step of taping my paper down out of the process. This is a cold press 100% cotton paper pad made by the Mead & Company. I also like this because it's smaller in size, also saving in my painting time. This is a 7 by 10 inch instead of the 9 by 12 paper that I often use. So now I'll grab my palette of watercolor paints, water, and paper towel. I'll only use one brush today, again keeping things quick and simple. This is a number 8 Artegria round brush with a nice pointy tip. You can find a list with links of all of these supplies in the description of this video. All right, let's go ahead and mix up all of the colors we'll be using for today's painting so that we don't have to stop and do that during the painting process. First, I've got some pure Gamboge color. And then I'll put down some cadmium orange, and I think I'll even add a little Gamboge to a small section of that orange also. Then I've got cadmium red and cadmium red mixed with alizarin crimson for a nice, rich, dark red. And lastly, I'll take some Hooker's green and mix in a tiny bit of cadmium red so it's more of a brownish green. But make sure not to put so much red that the color isn't actually a hue of green anymore. If you find that you've added so much and it's too brown, just add in some more Hooker's green to balance it out. Now today, I thought it would be fun just to paint some loose and uncomplicated poppies. So we're not going to be worrying about a lot of detail work, we're just going to have some fun. I'm just going to start by using some of this Gamboge to make one large petal of color. You'll notice that the tips or the edges of the petal are rounded off and different sizes to help represent ruffles of the flower. Now as I get to the left side, I'll use some cadmium orange to blend in and finish it off. And I'll also blend this color into some of the areas along the bottom of this flower as well. Then, while all that paint is still wet, I'll move on to some cadmium red that I'll paint one more small petal that's a little bit separated from the rest. I'll also add a touch of this color at the base with the orange and maybe even blend a little bit with the top edge of the flower, blending it in with the Gamboge. And lastly, I'll add in this nice dark red right here at the base to create some contrast and even the look of a shadow. I'll follow that same process again on a second flower, but this time I'll have it facing in another direction. If you're finding this tutorial fun and helpful, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming tutorials. Now I'll add in one more flower, again using those same basic steps, but I am going to make this one slightly smaller in size so it appears as if it hasn't opened up quite as much as the others. All right, let's add in some stems next. Now, these flowers are slightly damp still because I'm moving pretty quickly, but that's actually okay because I don't mind if the green bleeds into the petals a little bit anyway. I'll start by painting a small amount of green right at the base of the petal, and then I'll paint a nice thin stem using the very tip of the brush. And as a side note, before you start painting the stems, have a plan or a thought on which direction they might curve and how long they should be. Now I'll paint some really simple leaves to go with these poppies. Using that same green, I'll paint some small leaf shapes moving back and forth on either side to create one main leaf. Again, I'm moving pretty quickly here. These are really simple and uncomplicated. They are meant to represent the poppy leaf without being too intricate or realistic. You can add as many or as few leaves as you like, just until you feel like your painting has what it needs. Now, at this point, you could actually be done with this painting. It looks really pretty just how it is, but if you'd like to add a tiny bit of dimension to this painting, then let's try one more thing here. This first flower I painted is pretty much dry now, so I'm actually going to try adding in one more petal here that will be layered on top of the first one. I'll use some cadmium red and create a ruffly petal similar to as what we have done before. Then I'll add in some of the darker alizarin crimson and cad red mixture to the base and maybe a little on the sides or even the middle of the petal. This extra petal is just going to give the appearance that this poppy is facing or opening in a different direction than the other two. Now I'll just really quickly cut or separate my painting from the watercolor pad, and we can call this painting finished. This really is just a quick, simple, and fun painting to try when you don't have a lot of time but need to get that painting fix in. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy lives to watch today, and I hope that you will take a little time for yourself to enjoy some relaxing and therapeutic painting to rejuvenate your soul and keep you going. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.